Welcome to another episode of The Bastard Sermon. I'm one of your three hosts, Cody Hucker.
Luke Young.
Chris Eamer.
That's Chris Seamer. And, wow, Chris, did you get autistic since the last time we saw you?
More autistic.
More autistic,
Very.
that's right. That lovely little voice right there is the hilarious comedian Mark Chalifoux. Give it up, boys!
Hell yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
Dude, thanks for fucking coming on.
Yeah.
We barely know you. Ran into you at JFL, and I'd seen you perform a couple times, just a handful of times. And every time, you're a fucking crusher. You destroy
Thanks,
the
dude.
room. You're so fucking funny. And then you were kind enough to be like, yeah, I'll come do your dumb little podcast. And
Of course.
Here we are. So thank you for fucking doing that.
I was told this was a large podcast. I heard that it was the biggest one on the patio, so
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are living up to it.
We're trying to. We're trying
Biggest
our
show
best.
on the block.
Yeah, baby. Come on. Usually we do this at the end, but I want to get it out up front. What are your dates? What dates do you got coming up?
I don't have my book in front, but I'm at the Laughing Gas Comedy Club in Cape Girardeau. That's July 14th through 16th, I think. And then I'm going to Comedy Key West, August 4th to 6th, and some other bullshit after that. So
Hell yeah, man.
Where do they
those
go
are
to?
two.
Where do they go to get all your dates?
Just follow me on social media.
What's
I just do that. Throw
What's the
them out there
social media
sporadically. At socialmedia.com. You can follow me on at social media on Twitter. No, it's just at Mark Chalifoux on Instagram. And
You want to spell that because most of our fans are not going to.
We'll link it up. No, fuck that. We'll link it up. He doesn't have to go through the whole spelling.
How do you spell it?
What are they going to do? Pull that
CHALIFOUX.
Chalifoux.
You nailed it.
We got it written down.
I know.
Dude,
I was
it's
hoping it would look for it. But
It's the first day of the whiteboard,
I
dude.
made you a welcome sign.
I like it.
It's off camera for listeners.
It's
and,
the
and
poorest.
viewers.
I can't
And
believe
we got notes for the show. We're stepping up, okay?
I can't fucking believe that you had to point out the fact that you wrote "Welcome, Mark Chalifoux" in the shittiest, laziest handwriting I've ever seen on a
Look,
whiteboard.
listen,
My
It
handwriting
made
would be
him
worse.
say,
Mark,
"Hey,
Mark,
we gave you a
if
nice
I
card."
if I had other colors at my disposal, I would have made you, I swear to God, the prettiest welcome Mr. Chalifoux dry erase board welcome sign you have ever seen.
I will
You
bring
need-
home some other colors.
Yeah, you need like an Amazon wish list. And next time I come in here, I'll just send $10 ahead of time so you can really flex.
Speaking of Amazon, is it acceptable in the modern day to not have Amazon Prime, or at least be using a family member's Amazon Prime account? What are your feelings and thoughts on this for no particular reason, Mark Chalifoux?
Yeah, you gotta have Amazon Prime. I
Right?
mean, what is it? It's like
2-day
$50
delivery.
like decade right now. It's not even that expensive.
Exactly. They basically give it away. You buy a pack of gum, you flip the first pack out, and it's fucking, free Amazon Prime subscription for 3 years.
Says the guy who doesn't have one himself.
No, I do. I said, or be using the family members, right?
You don't have.
So anytime you order a package, it gets shipped to your dad, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, right to the cemetery. That's where they show up.
Your dad's dead?
For 15 years.
Yeah, that's
Mark.
15 years. Man, that would have been great news to break on the episode. That would have been great if it had just happened. Just a real casual drop of a dead dad.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
his
just
dad's
that
dead, my dad's dead, and he wants his dad dead.
Okay,
Soon
good.
enough.
Good. I thought it was going to be like, this is the podcast where you kill your dad. I'm like,
Yeah, so how do you plan on doing that? You know?
I just disappointing him enough, maybe. That should take it down a notch or two.
You're not doing
Heart
that.
just
You're like the
fails him.
only successful comedian in Cincinnati. Not the only
That's
funny
true.
one. There's plenty of funny ones.
Well, plenty's a little bit liberal. There are some funny
There's
ones.
a few.
Yeah.
How do you feel about a few? Is that good vernacular?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a few.
You're
Plenty.
hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know about plenty.
You're hilarious, Mark. I think, I know the first time I had seen you was for Mr. Hammond's special
Mr.
recording.
Hammonds, what are we doing right now?
Mr. Hammond.
Mr. Hammond.
He's
I
never
don't-
been called that ever. Not even
Except
at the
in
bank
court,
they don't call
maybe.
him that.
Mr.
Keep going.
Ham. Is
I
that,
wasn't being serious.
Okay.
is
I know.
that is that out? His special?
No,
Didn't
not
it?
yet.
They will be though soon enough.
Soon enough.
I was gonna say, I think I saw. Fuck, how long? It's been years and years since the first time I saw you go up. But
What were we gonna say about him though, Luke? Luke had
so
something.
I've
was just
always
saying it was
thought
funny,
you had
that's
very
what I
clever and very well written jokes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you had a heavy dad energy, but it was fun. It was like, I don't know. Do you consider what you do? Is it clean comedy? I don't know if I hear you say
It can
plug.
be.
It feels very clean, but
It
it's
can
like,
be. It depends. If it's a late show, Friday, then you got to go into the dick jokes a little bit more.
yeah.
And kind of get them, get some energy out of them. But I can go clean.
Yeah.
It's not a Nate Bargatze, I hate to be like, here's what the comedian that you sound like that's famous, but if I were to compare the two, it's like a Nate Bargatze style of like, Wait, he's clean. I don't even fucking.
Yeah, that's
don't
what
even
you
pay
want.
attention to it.
That's
He's just,
the best compliment you can get when you're doing clean comedy is somebody saying, "Oh, that was just really funny," and then, "Oh, I didn't even realize till later that was pretty clean."
right.
Yeah.
Because isn't all the fucks and cunts and all the dumb shit that I have to say just a crutch that people have to fucking step
Yeah,
on? instead of
tell
being
that to
funny?
Mr. Hamilton the next time you talk to him.
He was just
Guy
on.
throws like 27 fucks into one bit, and it's not even dependent on the punchline. Text him
Actually-
that as soon as I leave.
Actually, Blake had a little fan mail for you. Hold on, let me get a question that he wanted me to ask you, and I was like, I'm not gonna just say your question for you, but he said, ask him what it's like being a very funny dude trapped inside the most boring person's face.
Gosh, that is very flattering from somebody that has got like a face the size of 3 normal faces.
Okay, so let me read the next. I said, ha ha ha, I'm quoting you. He said he'll call me fat or ugly. It'll be funny. So
Yeah, well, he was
predicted
right.
the future.
You know, he kind of, I think maybe that's why he gained the 200 pounds is he's like, at least now I know where the shots are coming from. They're not going to make fun of my poor job or, you know, that sort of stuff. It's all going to be fat jokes from here on out. They're not going to make fun of the way I dress or the giant Skyline cup of soda I take everywhere.
Everywhere. I love the idea of just getting fat, like for defense, like.
Well, instead of
Right,
eating
learn
Percocets
how to
and snorting
counterpunch.
heroin, you just drink an entire 2-liter of Mountain Dew and fucking chase that bitch up with 3 chili dogs.
It's the perfect body armor.
And you're golden. Yeah, why not? Come on. How do you keep from doing heroin every day and fucking wanting to kill yourself? What's your secret?
It can be hard to get heroin. Also, like, I have to watch the kids. Sometimes I have kids, so, you know, it can be a real drag when you're trying to do heroin around your children.
So I was with my uncle one time when he was still alive, and I didn't know what a heroin nod really looked like, but he was with his 9-year-old, and he was on the couch just fully, and then coming back, and I was like, man, you must have had a real hard day at work today. And he's like, yeah, I'm fucking tired.
Hadn't been to work in 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. He
3 weeks ago, he went
lost
real
his-
hard.
I swear to God, that's the story. He lost his job 3 weeks ago because he was showing up late for work. Yeah, just too high on heroin to do anything. But
Falling
I know
off
what you
his-
mean. It seemed like a real bummer to be his son. But then once he woke up, you know, which is just doing bumps in the garage, he was like, well, the house is getting foreclosed on, and I have all these sweet Gerber knives and axes. Let's throw them through the walls of my house since there's no electricity on. So
That
we
does
just...
sound fun.
It was a great time. Yeah, him on heroin was a good time for just like destroying a house and spray
So how
painting
does he
a
stop
house.
from doing heroin? He doesn't want that.
Yeah, I don't want to throw axes through my walls. So.
You don't want to be a cool dad? Come on.
No, I want to be a boring dad, one that has some money that can afford an axe if he wants to, not just because he has to, because that's all you've got left is axe throwing through your house. Because it's going to be somebody else's house soon. So you might as well get, you know, as many axes through the drywall as you can at that point, I guess.
Sure. Tell Jay Armstrong that, all right?
Some people coach soccer. Some people throw access to their drywall.
Yeah.
You got to find whatever outlet works for you. And one of those is a little bit more lucrative in the end game. And that's not throwing the axes.
I just hope that the things that say on this podcast don't get my kids taken from me one day. Just for any CPS listening, it's all a joke. This is a character. None of this is true. Anyway.
They're not gonna listen this far in.
Yeah.
8 minutes? We've got 8 minutes deep.
They listened to about 4 minutes, then booked their tickets to Key West to see me do stand-up. And then they were like, that's all we needed this for. Thank you.
Like him,
They looked up to see how fat Blake is, and they'll see his Amazon thing. Like, wow, he is fat. They weren't lying.
He's both funny and factual.
Yes.
you gotta be around Tom Dustin when you're down there.
Yeah, it's Dustin's gig at his
Okay,
club.
I thought so.
I love Tom.
Who's
I thought
that?
so.
Inside baseball, folks.
No, he's a very, very funny dude. He comes up a lot of times to do brouhaha and
Wait,
stuff.
is he the guy that
He's a
fucking,
Boston
he was on,
comic?
yeah, I know him. He was on Stand-Up's podcast. He's got the heavy Boston accent or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
the entire time, and he's just like he was like 2 episodes of Stand-Up's podcast when he was in Key West, and he just seemed like the coolest guy. I was like, I want to fucking,
Yeah.
I want to talk to this guy. This guy just seems like he's got stories for days.
He's
and shit
been
like
in
that.
this apartment hanging out.
He was wearing like some I'm gonna fuck this up because I don't remember. I remember like half the story or some T-shirt that was like, "Sorry fellas," like, or "Sorry ladies, it's all dick for me," and it's an all pink T-shirt and cursive writing or something like that. Some big Boston thick neck. Like
He's got some great bits. I don't want to misquote his bit, but I feel like
it's not his bit. He was wearing that T-shirt.
I know I'm about to misquote one of them right now, though. But he used to work in restaurants and hooked up with somebody at work, and his boss told him not to shit where he eats. And he's like, first of all, I would never eat here. And he's like, I'm not shitting where I eat. I'm fucking where I steal. It's a great Tom Dustin.
Yeah, he's fucking funny, man.
Can we get him on the show? What are we
Yeah,
doing?
If he's in town.
Let's get that fucking guy
Yeah,
on.
let's get Tom Dustin. Yeah, he doesn't really like to go north anymore. That's why he's got a comedy club in Key West, because he did the South a lot. He was a Boston comic, hated the weather there in the winter, and so would always like be on the road a lot and go do like Florida and the South.
So he got problems with the Winter Hill Gang? Somebody told him Whitey Bulger's dead. Why has he got problems up north?
He's hiding out in Key West.
Yeah.
And now he never leaves the island, is what he said. So
He
I'm sure he does leave the island. That's just probably him trying to build up his own myth of like he's always on the island.
I mean, no, that sounds sick to just be so like from there and just I'm so over the cold and everything about it. I'm going somewhere where it's never an issue.
How old is he that he's made that decision? Because that's like that's an old lady move. Like you got to be in your fucking 60s.
Or you got to be just living and growing up in Boston, maybe, and just like used to the horrible winters.
I've never been, but I hear it's terrible.
I mean, I've been in great months. It's beautiful in the spring. When I lived in New York, we would drive up there for shows and stuff, and it was a lot of good crowds, and I liked the city a lot, but I was never there in like February when there was like, a ton of snow.
Yeah.
How much of a fucking nightmare is New York to live in?
It's great. I love New York.
Really?
I wouldn't want to live there now just because I have kids, but when you're in your 20s, it's an awesome place to live.
Isn't it just everything small as fuck, like dirty as shit? Like, I don't know. I listen to a lot of Skanks and a lot of those podcasts over there, and they're always Lewis always keeps going on about how the richest neighborhoods have just trash strewn about the streets, and even the fucking nice apartments with the nice views. It's like, what are you looking off onto? Is it just two crackheads fighting on a fucking roof full of pigeons? Like he was like,
you wouldn't want to watch that? That's fun.
But they also he's also like, it's fun. It's a great fucking city. There's a lot to do, a lot to eat, a lot to see. Fucking people from everywhere. He's like, there's a reason people love it here. But he was like, it's a filthy shithole. This whole fucking city.
Oh yeah, it is filthy.
Disgusting.
There is a lot of trash around, but it's got a great energy. And if you're in your 20s, especially if you're doing stand up, it's a great place to live.
You ever push a guy on the subway tracks?
No, I never pushed a guy on the subway tracks. But living there will get you to the point where you want to do that. Like I just, fortunately I was doing stand-up, so you get out on the road a little bit and you get to escape New York. But I remember being stuck there for stretches where, you'd see the crazy dudes on the train, and usually you would just move away from them, get away from them. But then I remember one time where I was like, I want this guy to say something. Like I was in that poor of a mental state where I was just going to wail on some mentally handicapped homeless guy.
You were
like, I hope he said something. I hope he fucks with me right now so I can beat him with his umbrella, You
were going under the New York transformation.
Yeah, that's a dark place to be in when you just get so fed up. And it wasn't even this particular person. I just, had it with the city at that point where I'm like, oh, God, I hope this guy said something. And that's a dark place. Me, like we just talked about how I'm a clean-ish comedian. So for me to get to the point, and this wasn't like after a late night of drinking or anything. It was just me at like 12:30 p.m. just like, God, I hope this guy says something so I can really wail on a stranger.
That happens to me all the time now, and I'm in Cincinnati.
What? So were you just getting stuck in New York to do stints of shows?
I lived in New
You
York
lived
for
there.
4 years.
Well,
On purpose.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, like, just the energy. Yeah, it's a great place for comedy. It's a good place to live when you're young because there's a lot of great restaurants and everybody's kind of close together. So you see so many friends and other comics in your neighborhood and that kind of stuff. But, like, the city can drain on you a little bit. And I know it's a lot worse now than when I lived there. But
how bad is the open mic scene? Is it...
See, that's the thing is, like, I always tell people that if you're going to move to New York, you have to do it before you're, like, pretty established as a comic. I think the best time to move is after you've done it for maybe a couple years. You know how to write a joke, but you're not too proud to do open mics for a year because they're brutal. They suck. It's just you're in a basement of a comedy club, 5:30 p.m., and there will be 20 comics that sign up. And most of them, if you showed up for the 5:30 mic at like 5:15, you would be comic number 19 on the list because somebody got there at 3 p.m. and probably made the list and then signed up 5 of his buddies. So that's how that works. And then you get down there and there's no audience at any of these. It's just you're telling your jokes to other comics and just trying to get down the muscle memory, and maybe you get a couple chuckles. You're like, all right, that could be something. So
I think that makes sense because a lot of the people that people consider like the staples of New York comedy are all transplants. I mean, Patrice came from Boston. Fucking Big J comes from fucking Philly. You've got fucking Nick Mullen came from Austin and a bunch of different places. Stavros was doing Maryland, Baltimore, fucking comedy scene and shit like that. And they're all, you think of them as New York comics, but they all got established first. Ari fucking was an LA comic for forever and then came over to New York and shit like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the advantage in New York. So the shows suck. And I always tell people here, it's like the best pro-am you do at like Go Bananas in Cincy is going to be a better show than 90% of the sets you'll do in New York. It's just that you can do so many shows. I could get in 5 sets before 7:30, you know, and even if some of them were throwaway sets, it still makes a big difference. And like you're saying, like everybody moves there, and that's why it's great. You know,
that being
all those good comics make you get yourself better. You push yourself more. You know, I would see guys like Mark Norman still coming to these shitty 5 p.m. open mics. And it's like, you've been on TV already. What are you still doing here? And that kind of work ethic pushes you to keep grinding and getting out there and stuff.
New York also gives you the opportunity to see like Dave Attell randomly or see fucking Louis C.J. perform just out of nowhere, like looking like a schlub with fucking commenting on pizza dust on it, like, oh fuck, there's crumbs on my shirt, god damn it.
You would do shows with people. I got tired of seeing Jim Gaffigan. You know, people would pay like $50 to see him in an arena, and I was seeing him on bar shows for a couple weeks to the point that when he would drop in, I would leave the room. I'm like, I'm not watching him bomb with this new shit again, and I'll go and talk to my buddies while Jim Gaffigan was on stage.
God, what a fucking amazing
like it's an
time.
open micer, yeah. And there's just so many great comics. It's like I'll stay in watch Big J because he'll do some crowd work and stuff, but you know, Gaffigan was working on his stuff, and you know, mad respect to him because that's how you develop an act, is doing those shitty shows. And he's not like Brian Regan where he's like, I'll just do it at my theaters for my audience and kind of slowly build it. Like he went out there and ate shit at these bar shows for like 8 people.
Who's the wildest stop-in that you saw, like where you weren't bored of it at that point, but you were like, and now fucking Seinfeld's up, or whoever your guy is? Like,
I mean, for me, the first paid set I had at a big New York club was at the Comic Strip. Like, so my first night there as a paid regular, Dave Chappelle dropped in.
Oh, wow.
And this was a Monday night. This was 2012, so this is before he's touring. You can't buy a ticket to see him. He's like still a real elusive guy. And so for me to be doing a set as a paid comic in this room was already like super like sentimental to me. It made me feel like I finally made it as a comic because I was getting paid to do jokes in the first room I ever saw stand up in when I was on a college trip. So that was amazing. I got passed as a paid regular, and then, you know, Chappelle dropped in and closed out this show, and there were only like 30 people in the audience, and like the whole 15 minutes before a set, it was just me and him in the green room, just a totally cool dude.
Did you link it up at
and
all?
Then just why don't you start going on the road, taking me with you? No,
not like that. I just mean, like, were you guys able to vibe at all? Or
we were, because he was so down to earth. He introduced himself and was like, hey, I'm just Dave, and I'm like, you know, thinking like, yeah, of course I know who you are, but he didn't have that attitude of like, oh yeah, and leave me alone.
Like, of
you know,
course
totally
you would know
chill
who
dude.
I
We were
am.
2 comics in a green room.
I just listened to Ron White talk about a story of seeing Richard Jeni, like when he was the home headliner for a club, and Richard Jeni's in a green room, and fucking he goes in like, oh, I'm gonna say what's up to Richard Jeni, and he's like, hey, big fan of your work and all that shit. And Richard Jeni, without making eye contact with Ron White, looks at his manager and he's like, how much longer is he gonna be in here for? And he was like, what a cunt, fuck that guy. Hopefully, like, is there a lot of that at all with some of these guys? I feel like that's
with guys that are not at a good level, but they think they want to be like the big shot. It's people that if I said their name, you would have no idea who they are. But then the big guys like the Chappelles carry themselves. Like even Ron White, like I remember doing a show in Atlanta that he dropped in on. And, you know, he made his name with a sort of a gimmicky thing with the redneck tours and stuff. But a friend of mine from New York had a gimmick show that I think it was like a boxing themed thing, right? So you would fight somebody, another comic, you would box for like 3 1-minute rounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start boxing, it is a lot. And then whoever won or got to do like a 5-minute set, and whoever lost had to go right away and do a 3-minute set. And so
That sounds awesome.
you know,
It does kind of sound awesome.
we're all in the green room with Ron White, and we're talking, and, you know, he's talking about the redneck thing. He's like, you know, obviously I've done my stuff. I think whatever you do to sell tickets, totally fine. we're all just trying to make a buck out here and get better as comics. And so I tell him about this thing, and I didn't tell him that it was the guy who started it was sitting right next to me. I just said, hey, what do you think about this idea? I saw this in New York, and I explained the boxing thing. He's like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. That was awesome because I just got to burn my friend without making it obvious.
Did your friend just have to sit there in his own shit pile?
Yeah.
And stew
Oh, yeah.
in
And
it?
the show got canceled after like two I think weeks of it, and then the booker was like, yeah, we can't do this.
That
The
just-
club.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
have to get-
liability.
That
Yeah.
just seemed-
license stuff for just even to do.
But that doesn't seem like a story of like him being a dick. It's just
No,
him being
no, it
very
was hilarious.
real about what works and it's funny. Like, and I've got the vibe of that. Like, I've not got as much experience hanging out with like these big name comics, but just seeing a couple shows, exactly what you're saying. Like, none of these guys that I consider like the greats of comedy ever make you feel like they don't have time for you. Like, I've sat there and talked to like when Dave Attell and Ian Finance came through, and I went to get a picture and a poster. I was like trying to wrap it up, but Dave's like asking me questions about. It was when I was with my baby mama or whatever. He's like, it's like we're just here for a picture, and there's a line of people. He's like, where'd you guys meet? And talking it up, and then Ian's commenting on the Misfits shirt, and I was starting to talk to him about punk rock, and then I was like, should I move? And he's like, they'll wait. It's Dave Attell. They're going to wait for you. Anyways, the fucking Earth AD. And he just keeps going and talking for forever. And Big J was the same way. Like, they're all just like fucking, they have time for you and they treat you nice. And I mean, maybe
Attell's the greatest.
That's just how Cody remembers it. Actually, he was just like a hammered fucking mess. He was like,
that's how I was when I talked to Bert and Norman.
Yeah,
Bert was
When I talked to Bert and Norman, I was a disaster. But I messaged Norman thinking nothing. I was never going to get anything back. He's like, hey, it's all right. I'm gay. Come on. What are you worried about?
That's a good Normand.
yeah, he's been practicing.
It's fun.
The other night he didn't. I don't think he realized at all he was doing it with the hey, I'm gay. He did it like easily 15, 20 times.
I'm not a good impressionist, but I was like, I love Norman's cadence. It's fun. But yeah, you get coked up and just start fucking, hey, I'm gay. Come on, what's going on? Yeah. And I just did that 50 times in a night to where Lloyd's like, I'm going to stab you to death if you don't quit doing
We
this.
went to go see Cosby together, Norman and myself
How
and a
was
few
that?
other guys. This was
eerie.
before. This was before the
There's
big
no
Cosby
before.
stuff.
Everybody's always known about the Cosby stuff. Like,
It was before the Hannibal's bit. How about
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So
All right.
it wasn't like we went to go see him after he got out of prison. We're like, hey, this will be fun. Let's go see Cosby, tell some jokes. But he was doing like an hour and a half long. It was
Jeez.
just his sets are so long because he does like 30 minutes of material. It just takes him 90 minutes to say it.
I've
And-
always hated Cosby.
Good
Same.
Lord.
Dude, Norman
Trust
fell
Lloyd.
asleep. I
Yeah.
give him shit for that. He fell asleep like halfway through the set.
I don't blame him. He's never been. I don't know. I didn't grow up in a time where Cosby was the comic to listen to and shit, and like was inundated with like older comics. Like when I was like an 8-year-old, my dad's like, here's George Carlin and fucking watch the Lewis Black specials and fucking Eddie Murphy shit. But never once did he play a fucking Bill Cosby. Then I heard Joe Rogan pontificating on a podcast about, dude, he's so good. He just crafts these. He
Yeah.
just starts telling a story, and then I was like, is it really
Louis
that
was
good?
the same way.
I
where
tried to
he
listen
was-
to it. It was like, this just sucks.
We
It's
all
not-
went because Louis C.K. was just, ranting and raving about like how great Cosby was in the New York Times or something. So one of our friends was like, "Oh, we got to go see Cosby. He's the greatest ever." And everyone's like, "All right." So we had like 8 of us that went out
Norman's
there, and
snoozing next to you.
then he literally fell asleep. Like you could hear snores and stuff as during his set. And this was like in New Jersey too. So like one of the theater doors was propped open because it was summer.
Norman's
And
also
you
a
could
drunk,
hear
so come
Norman
on.
snoring and crickets too. Crickets. That's how good Cosby was. You could hear literal crickets
That's
from
one of the-
outside.
One of the things me and my dad fought about was like he showed me Carlin and Pryor and
Yeah.
all kinds of
classics,
shit. Yeah,
yeah.
and then he also liked Bill Cosby, and I'm like, you're way off the fucking mark on this one, man. I
Yeah.
don't.
Everybody talks
I
about Bill
never-
Cosby himself, and I've tried, and I'm like,
He was one
I
of the first
understand
comedy albums I listened to.
How did you feel about it?
I
Were you a
fucking loved it.
yeah?
Hmm
I don't know. I
But that
think-
was the
Do you
first
remember a
comedy
bit
album
that you
I-
liked?
Yeah, it was the album finish, and he talked about how he was on a football team in high school, and they were down some points, and they called a timeout. They went into the locker room, and it was to speed it up, the coach gave them like a big rallying speech, and they went to go storm the doors to get back on the field, and as soon as they hit the doors were locked. And that's how he finished the bit. But it killed me when I first heard it. But that, I don't know. I was
Wow,
like
that was
11
riveting.
years
I mean,
old.
there
You know what?
are-
You've changed my mind with that bit.
There's
No,
a
I'm
lot of
with you.
people that love him, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. It's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a prank, even though when you pay money to buy a ticket, it sort of does. You're
Yeah.
like, wow. I guess they got me on this one.
So what's the move back to Cincinnati? Is that just because you have kids, or is it big fish, small pond situation? What's that move?
It's two things. I guess
Couldn't
the
stop
first,
fucking, huh? What's going
yeah,
on?
because the thing is, like, it gets too expensive, and you're looking at a one bedroom, and like once she got to be about 2, she's walking. We're like, all right, now we gotta get
You're in
more
New
space.
York at that point.
You can't do a one bedroom in New York City with a 2-year-old. And so we started looking at 2 bedrooms, and it's like once you're 30 minutes outside the city, you might as well be 12 hours outside the city because you're not going to go in every night. You're not going to be doing your spots. You'll go in once in a while. There's just not that much road work in New York where it's like, oh, okay, well, you can do like this city or that city or whatever. So if you're not in the city, it doesn't really make a difference. And then at that point, just the fact that, you'd be spending $2,300 a month for a 2-bedroom, and this was 2015. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to us anymore. So we're like, oh, we'll go back to Cincy. We'll get the free babysitting, and I can do the roads. And it's not that big of a deal, and it worked out a lot better for us that way for sure.
I mean, your views are popping off, right? You've got like a fucking.
Some. I mean, the album was good for me. Like that was
Where
something.
can people get that? Can you plug that real quick?
Yeah, you can get. It's called Think Fast, and Amazon. If you have an Amazon Prime membership, which everybody does,
except for Luke,
normal person does, yeah, you can get it on Amazon, Apple Music, Pandora, any of that. Tidal, you can get it on Tidal. You can't get it on Spotify. I got pulled from Spotify.
I think I still have 2 hard copies of it in my car.
You can get it from his car. He'll hook you up. You're just going to start selling my CD to people.
We can't even sell our own T-shirts. We're going to sell your CD now? Yeah.
Just have a merch table with T-shirts and my CDs.
I have 2 of them. I bought 2 because I was going to give one to a buddy of mine. He was like, oh, dude, I found this dude, Mark Chalifoux. I saw him at Brouhaha, and I bought his CD after. I was like,
then he sawed your other friend's head off, and you're like, well, I guess I have 2 CDs
friend,
now.
But yeah.
Callbacks to old episodes anyways.
You got to listen to the archives. Yeah. You got to be committed.
But no, yeah, it was a friend of mine. I was like, oh, I know he's got hard copies of the album. I'll grab one when I see him. And then he saw you at Brouhaha, and I guess like walked up to you and bought one afterwards.
Was this a... Oh, keep going. My bad.
No, and then he was like, yeah, dude, you got to check out this one dude, Mark Chalifoux. He had an album. I saw him over at the tunnel, and then I bought an album right off him. And I was like, yeah, that's the one I told you I was going to get you a copy of. I have 2 of them right now in my backpack. He's like, oh, well, I bought one already. I was like, cool, man. So,
we'll just wait till I die, and then there'll be some resale value on that,
I'll have to get you to sign them or something.
Yeah.
Or I'll get Blake
Remember
to sign
me
them.
when I'm dead, yeah.
I'll get Blake to sign them.
Yeah, Blake could sign it.
Mr.
I'm sure
Hammond.
he uses fat fingers. It'll look kind of like my shitty handwriting.
I hear the whisperings of a Dry Bar special that's coming around.
Yeah, that should be coming out sometime this fall, I guess. And we'll see how that goes. Some of those can really pop off for people and give them a level jump from the venues they're doing and stuff. So we'll see.
Did you just get one chance to film that, or were you able to do a couple
Two
sets?
shows. And it was the first one because I was supposed to do it in March of 2020. It was the first, the first date that I had canceled. It was like March 30th or something. And so I was like, oh, that sucks because I was excited to shoot it. And then they came back to me and they were like, all right, you can shoot it in November. And this is for like quarter filled audience in masks. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Because the only way the Dry Bar thing works for you is if you have clips that go viral and get millions of views.
Or you got
if
a
it
neck
doesn't
tattoo.
look and sound good for you, yeah.
Or if you don't have,
a
neck tattoos, you're gonna be bad at Dry Bar, I think.
So you need it to sound good and look good. And if there's nobody fucking there and there's just people in masks, it's gonna sound like crap. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. No one's gonna take that deal. And there were some people from Cincinnati that ended up taking that deal, which more power to them. So I waited.
I mean, fuck, Nate Bargatze did an outside show for his Netflix thing with all masks while there's planes going on
that's
overhead.
a little bit different. It's not his one shot to get an audience. But
I'm just saying, if that guy's like making that much of a fucking...
If an established guy can go ahead and do that just for funsies. Like,
if a guy who has to fulfill his fucking
then just
obligations.
about anybody
to
can
fulfill his
do it.
contract.
I see
knowing
how
that
I'm
another
done.
one's coming around the back.
You know what? I see how I'm a
guy with
foolish
a
boy.
Guaranteed following.
So I waited. I did the
You
first
know what?
full
Solid
show.
points, Mark Chalifoux. Solid points.
And you can put them side by side with the ones that were shot in front of nobody, and I think you'll see the difference. We had, it was the first week that they had full audiences again. So this was last fall. And they did a great job with it. I taped with Mike Kaplan. We were both doing it for the first time.
He's a funny dude, too.
He is. He's a very funny dude. He's done a lot of late-night sets and things, and it went pretty well. So it was 2 shows. And I felt bad for the guy after us because Dry Bar, their whole thing is like it's funny for everyone. It's shot in Utah, so they don't serve booze. I got to go first, which is by far the best spot to be on any TV taping because, you know, you have the warm-up comic who's hyping everybody up. They're all excited just to be in the theater. It's a packed theater, and then there's, you know, they're seeing camera guys roaming the aisles and stuff, so that makes you feel extra excited. Yeah. So I get that pop. So, like, you know, when they say my name, it's just like the place erupts, you know, because they're trained to do that. Then the second comic was Mike Kaplan, who's, you know, does a lot of shorter jokes, very funny, a lot of one-liners and stuff that are good. And he's
Mike Kaplan spelled M-Y-Q?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, dude, yeah, he's great. That's
very
great.
Some
funny
people
dude.
call him Mick, but it's Mike.
Yeah, it is Mike. He calls himself Mike, so that's important. But
I remember Comedy Central on the one thing. It was like, Mick Kaplan. Like when I was watching, I was like,
good old Mick.
That's definitely not how he introduced himself at Go Bananas. Like,
but I thought, you know, he did a good job, too, so he carried that momentum. Then they had an intermission. Then they had a third comic who was not as well established, not as experienced, so I felt bad for him because he had to go. These aren't long sets either. These are 25-minute sets. There was no need for an intermission. Yeah. But, so that guy kind of died a little bit because they're not even serving booze at this intermission. These are people going to buy Gatorade and Skittles and stuff, and now you got to reset the energy. And
you got to parachute meth in the bathroom in order to fucking...
Once they get the sugar rush, I'll get them.
We've already seen two guys. You know, one we were excited to see because it was the start, and one because he kept that energy going, and he was very funny. And so now it's not as new to us, so they didn't change the order. I thought they would at least change the order for the second show, and nope, same order. So I got that first guy bump, and... you know, he struggled a little bit with his at the end.
So with you said it was originally scheduled before COVID, and then you got a chance to do it later. With such a distance of time between the original scheduling and the actual taping of, did you change a lot of your material?
Yes.
Or do you think you're much happier having had waited with new material?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have liked to have waited even longer, honestly, because you know, like anything you record, if you're a halfway decent comic, you're going to want to have done things differently when you're a year out. You're going to say, oh, I had a tag that's better for this bit, or I would have put this with this chunk and moved it around, or I wish I could have done this new bit in the special, but...
Then it'll never come out if you do that, right?
Right, exactly. You can't wait forever. So you're going to have to deal with that. Yeah.
Re-edit your bit for fucking 25 years and
But there were things that I changed around, and it still was kind of COVID-y back then, so I was pretty proud with the approach that I had to it, at least, of the diligence of running the set where I could. It wasn't, you know, anytime I've done a showcase for somebody or like any important set that you run a lot, I would always try and like get the set down and then run it like 40 times, 50 times. And you can't really do that in the COVID era of stand-up. I mean, you could do it now, but not back then. So I was proud with like how many reps I got in. It wasn't as many as I would have liked to have had, but I worked out the material. I got on stage enough that I was pretty happy with the final thing. So.
Okay.
What was the genesis of the comedy career?
I worked in radio coming out of college. And I was doing...
What radio station were you doing?
I worked at 700 WLW in Cincinnati.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which is... I started on the overnight trucking show, which is very underrated. They pull in like $1 million a year or something in advertising.
Those are the guys that you want. Those truckers are listening for 15 hours at a fucking time.
Yeah.
If you get your hooks in them, man, they're going to be your fan for forever. That's how Opie and Anthony got all the pests, and Howard Stern got all his people. It's those overnight trucker guys.
It was an interesting time to be on that, because like I was just behind the scenes. You know, I was a producer, so I was screening calls and stuff, and I didn't know that they called with like their trucker handles. So the first guy called, he's like, hey, this is Darth Vader. If Doc Holliday calls, can you give him my cell phone number? I was like, fuck you, and just hung up on the guy. And they had to explain. He was like, no, these are regulars. These are guys that call every night. They're going to use their names, whatever.
Oh God, I just told Darth Vader to fuck himself.
Yeah, I told Darth Vader to fuck off day one. But like I had done that stuff through college, a lot of sports media stuff and play-by-play and sports writing. I had freelanced for ESPN.com a little bit, so I was kind of going down that path, and did a sports talk radio show. I moved from the trucking to the sports talk world, and we had a comedian that came on our show a good amount, and Josh Sneed. So he encouraged me to get into stand-up. And we did a podcast together in 2006, 2007, which like nobody was doing back then. So if we had stuck with that, we would have made a lot of money probably. But I started doing stand-up because of that.
Is it still available?
I don't even think so. That's how long ago it was. Everything else it lasts forever except for our podcast.
That's,
You guys called it a
I remember
podcast
that.
then?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Nobody was doing it.
Nobody
It was like
except
you and
for
Adam
Jimmy
Carolla.
Pardo.
Yeah.
Pardo had one. His Never Not Funny, and that was sort of what we kind of modeled it off. But yeah, so like I got into it through that, and I was terrible. I was terrible at stand up back then. You know, I was so deferential. I didn't want to steal anybody's material accidentally. So I did so much reading on like message boards and stuff, and was obsessed with it. But all my jokes were just like way too extreme. My punchline, like the punchline from my first joke was "fuck the troops." I'm like, no one's gonna have a "fuck the troops" joke. You know, I'm gonna put this out there. And,
Stanhope, yeah.
and then, you know, no one's gonna accuse me of stealing "fuck the troops." So like, it was a rough first year. But if you can keep up that delusion, that's kind of what you need.
Going up there doing cancer material and fucking
Yeah, unfortunately,
talking about jacking off. Like,
hitting
yeah.
people, hitting women in the face, sure.
I'm going to lead with that, yeah. Before the
women in
crowd's
the
on my
face.
side, I'm going to get up there and just...
Is,
Yeah.
is his first year of comedy your past 4 years of podcasting?
Yeah, I think so. As he
Okay.
was saying it, I was like, I got to dial this back. I gotta...
Cuddy's like, what? What's wrong with that?
I've been documenting my life.
You're just trying to figure. You're trying to find your way in it all. And if there's a few jokes that get you canceled before you even start,
I'm not
So
a
be it.
comedian, so it'll be all right. No worries.
but yeah. So then I started doing mics, and then got the bug for it, and did shows around Cincinnati. Did an MC week or two. I did 3, I think, before I finally left. I worked
Who was the
with
group that
Josh
you started
Need.
with?
So around me, like Mike Cronin had been like a year ahead of me, maybe.
I
Alex
love
Stone
Cronin.
was like a year or 2 ahead of me. Those were good guys.
Evans.
Sam Evans was like a year behind me or 6 months behind me. So we had a nice little crew. And then Reed
Tabari?
Thaler and Andrew Short.
Is that Alex
Tabari had
Stone?
already done stand up for 12 years, I think. By the time
Lloyd, is that Alex
He was-
Stone?
Yeah,
That is
and
Alex
Sam
Stone, yeah.
Evans.
So your podcast, Fuck You Like The Bengals, used to be Alex
Yeah,
Stone.
they started off as their podcast.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, good dudes. We had a good crew, but it was also like a time where you could only get on stage a couple times a month. We had one open mic that wasn't at the comedy club. So Mike Cronin and I would drive 90 miles down to Louisville and just do their open mic on a
Oh,
Wednesday night
God.
for 6 people and stuff. But we loved it, man. That's how you get better.
Let me stop you right there. Lloyd said that Louisville is one of the most toxic comedy scenes he's ever seen. Is that was
Who
that
said
the,
that?
Well, for a little while. I'm saying there were
Should
guys
I not have
there.
said that? Was this?
No, yeah, it's misquoting a bit.
Whoops.
It's misquoting what I'm saying. There was a period where
It was a little
everybody.
oopsie situation.
There was a period there for like a year and a half or so where everybody got like, everyone was mad at everybody.
I just don't know that many good comics from Louisville, period. So the toxicity would not surprise me.
No, yeah, like,
Ronan is great. He's from Louisville.
yeah, Hirschberg.
Yeah. And I guess Mandy's from Louisville. She's funny. I don't know too many Louisville comics, I guess.
Yeah, it was just a friend
It's
of
always
mine
good when your credits are like, and she's funny, and then just silence after that.
Yeah. I mean, but there's 2. So, like, if it's toxic, maybe that's why people weren't getting better.
Yeah, I mean, there was like 1 or 2 guys I knew that were down there from like when I used to go down for hardcore shows and shit all the time to do stand up.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of them. He's like, I don't know what the fuck happened, but there's like 6 new people that have just turned everything into like this group versus this group. And like, if this person shows up to this mic, everybody's pissy about it. And
Gosh, who's got time for that?
that's what I was saying. Like, so I don't want to say like it's just toxic all the time. That was just that one specific person
Right.
at that time that was talking about it. I don't know enough to.
So moving to New York helped me with that because I got to escape all of that when I came back to Cincinnati because there's still some of that pettiness and people are like, oh, it's so cliquey, it's so high schooly. It's like, I don't know, maybe it is. Like, I don't know who's got beef with who. If I'm booking a show, I'll say, hey, you come open and you too. And then later there'll be a poster and somebody will message me like, I can't be in the same room as this guy or I'll knock him out. I'm like, all right, take it easy, Blake. You're not going to knock anybody out.
We all know you were talking about Cena.
Yeah. Got to keep those 2 apart.
Let's do this. Best set, worst set. What's the proudest that you've ever been doing comedy, and then what's the most you wanted to put a gun in your mouth doing
Oh,
comedy?
gosh. Best set. I don't know if it was my best set, but it was probably that comic strip night was at least the most memorable set for me. That's got to be up there. I mean, my JFL show, that was a good set. That was a short set, but I feel like I was pretty proud of how tight that was because there was a lot of moving pieces. I'd never done those jokes in that order before, and it came out really well.
I feel bad I missed that. I went to smoke a cigarette, and then I went to go back in, and you were walking out, and I was like, God damn it. Fucking...
Everybody was like, that was the set of the night. And you're like, damn it, I blew it.
Yeah. I want to do my dumb podcast?
Worst set would probably be, I've got 2, I guess. I did a like a beer and comedy festival that was in Lebanon, Ohio. It was an outdoor thing at the county fairgrounds.
Yeah.
What was the temperature outside?
It was very cold. And this was like to
Great
raise money
comedy
for their
temperature.
like local symphony or something, and nobody cared. I had to follow a juggler from America's Got Talent,
I was
you were there. The juggler killed, man.
That's when I lived. That's when I lived in Lebanon at
He
that time.
I
killed.
was about to say, wait, he lit the room on fire with juggling?
I was just gonna
he
say, how is juggling
killed.
still
juggling-
dominating the entertainment?
Was he juggling
like-
live babies? Like, what was the stakes of the juggling?
Bowling pins. Maybe he had some fake swords, but he killed. And he had like the hackiest joke. He'd turn around and be like, "Are you guys looking at my butt, ladies?" And these old Lebanon ladies just loved him. Loved him. And
Yeah,
I was
it
the
was
headliner. It was
awful.
So I went on stage as everybody's like, "Okay, there's 15 minutes left. If you have beer tickets left, you use them right now." And so everybody left. They either left to go get their beer tickets or to like go blow this juggler. And then, I tried to pull out every trick. He had like glitter that he would pull out of his pocket and throw in the air. So I like stole some of that before my set and put it in my pocket and threw it at some punchlines.
You were like, yeah, fuck the troops, and threw glitter.
Right,
into the-
exactly. And then, I was doing some crowd work, but the only people polite enough to stay were just like the juggler's hot girlfriend and their friends, and there were like a few other people. And after that, they're like, "Oh, we're not going to stay for this." I got heckled by a dude in a camouflage fedora.
So you couldn't even find him.
That is, yeah, exactly. I could see the bottom half of his face. But that was a low point. And my brother-in-law came to that show with me because he lived out that way. And I did a bit about this for a while, but I could hear him backstage talking to the promoter, just saying, "Can he be done? Is this that's the only time in my comedy career I had somebody throw in the towel for me."
Did you
got off at
His
27 minutes.
His cornerman had a better
be
idea of
done?
what was happening than he did.
He's like, "All
I'm
right, you're done."
such a weak estrogen-filled man. I would have cried. I would have literally been choking tears back. Do you ever get to that moment where you're...
No,
No,
there's
okay.
always that. I'm still like, I'm going to get them back. 27 minutes in, they're going to carry me off. Because I was the headliner, so I felt like the pressure. But there was no chance. Nobody could have won with that.
It was rough. Like there were horses off to the side.
Yep,
that were
I
just
remember
like
the
walking
horses.
in circles for no reason.
Just
like
clopping a clop.
Yeah, in between every like anyone talking, you just heard.
There was another comedian who went before the juggler, and he walked somebody that was working there. That's how bad the event was.
Was it Tom Myers?
And
What?
a volunteer for the thing quit his shift volunteering, went up to the stage, was like, "I can't believe you talk like that," and went home. Like, he made somebody quit their volunteer shift. He was so bad.
Good God.
Something a guy was doing out of the goodness of his heart to help the local symphony out.
Yeah.
He was like, no.
I
Fuck
can't.
this.
You're exposing me to this. So, yeah, that was probably the worst. Because I've done some weird shows and have been okay with them. I've done some shows that shouldn't have been shows and at least got through them. But, yeah, that one was by far the worst.
Like what? What
I've-
show that was a show that should never
So,
have
like in
been?
New York, you get all sorts of gimmicky shows. We did one after a zombie Christmas pageant. Or no, we opened for a zombie Christmas pageant. So this was at a bar that was bar/beauty salon.
Oh,
And,
I'm laughing
it's some
already.
hipstery thing. And, like, so the audiences are all these people in, like, zombie makeup and Santa hats and stuff. So it's like, that's a weird show. I did one that was at a class reunion here in Cincinnati, where somebody hired me to do the show because they saw me at the club. They're like, "Come do stand-up at our class reunion." And somebody else in the class had hired another comedian. I will not say who it was for his own sake, I guess. And then he performed first. And during his set, it went so poorly. The woman who booked me, different lady, right? She came up to me and was like, "I am so sorry. This is terrible. This was a terrible idea. Here's your $300. You don't have to perform. You can just go home. We never should have done this." So that was the only time I've had a show canceled mid-show. But I still, even that, I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I'll go up. I'll get them on my side, and just did some crowd work and stuff. And
Comedy
you know.
seems like
Did
the
it work?
bottom rung of the
It
entertainment
did. It worked for
industry.
like 5 minutes, and then I did some material, and it didn't work. And I was like, okay, well, she said I could be done.
Right, I might
Enjoy
as well
your
make my
class.
exit now.
Yeah, there
Okay.
was the comic, and he's like, "I'm going to get him back," and I did for a while, and then I was like, okay, well, I don't have to do this anymore, so I'm out.
Comedy seems like the bottom rung of the entertainment industry in the sense that it's the most disrespected version of like expressing yourself possible. Like anything else that people do to express themselves is usually viewed with like praise and like minor criticism. But you try to do stand-up comedy, and then they're like, "We'll put you up at the state fair with horses shitting all over the ground and a juggler first, and you can go do your yuck."
I thought the juggler would be lower. I'll be honest with you. I thought I would bury the juggler. I was like, "Oh, this poor sap is gonna have a tough go of it. No one's gonna care about him." But
I feel like after he said what America's Got Talent or whatever, like everybody's like, "Oh, I watched that." Like it was that's how the
perfect
crowd,
demo for him. Yep.
Yeah, it felt like he couldn't have done any. He could have went up there and shit into his own hands and then just winged it at people and called it juggling, and they would have still been on his side.
Nobody there was fans of Laughs on Fox. Nobody cared about that. Nope.
Let me do another best worst with you. Best worst cities to perform in or scene in general.
I think the best, I guess, would have to be New York, because that's what. There's a reason all those guys moved to New York, because that'll make you. Yeah, it's not always the best shows, but it will make you the best as a stand-up. So I would have to say that New York is kind of unparalleled in that. Outside of New York, I think I would still go big city and go Chicago, because Chicago's pretty great. Worst city would probably be Fayetteville, South Carolina. Would just be what I've liked the least lately.
That's wildly specific. What happened in Fayetteville?
It just wasn't that fun. I mean, I did fine. The show was fine. Like I fulfilled my contractual obligations, but they told me they're like, there's two things you need. The agency was like, there's two things you need to know. It's a military town and it's very diverse. And I can tell you that one of those things is definitely true. One of those, and it's not the latter. So it was a bunch of, military bros, and it was fine. Yeah. It just, before the show, they had a local open it who was not the greatest. And I brought Andrew Rudick with me to feature, and he was an idiot. He told me he was already, he's like, I'm going to be in, Myrtle Beach or something the week before.
Was he doing a silly voice when he was telling you?
Yeah, I mean, he's a cartoon character, so of course.
Spaghetti man.
So he said he was going to be in South Carolina anyway. So it's like, I'll be down there, and maybe Fayetteville's North Carolina, one of those Carolinas. So I was like, okay, I'm doing Asheville right before that. We can meet up in Fayetteville, we'll do that together. And then he was supposed to be in Asheville like after that. And then he messed up his routing, so he did a show in Cincinnati on that Thursday. Drove like the 10 hours to Fayetteville the next day and got there right before the show. Did our show, and the very next morning drove 12 hours back to Indianapolis for a show the next night, and then drove all the way back to Asheville, North Carolina a few days later. So he's an idiot. Just had to go on record with that. And before...
We also love him.
Of course. I mean, I brought him with me for a reason. I love Rudick.
Fucking moron.
We just did a show together a few days ago. But at the show, the local guy that when you're in a town from out of town, everyone's excited to see you, and the locals are introducing themselves or whatever, and your gut reaction's to be helpful, right? Because you don't want to be a dick like we talked about. You want to be like the Ron Whites and the Chappelles and be really nice to everybody. You don't want to be like the mid-level guy that's an asshole.
Yeah.
So this dude was telling us that he's a comic, and he's like, if you ever need an opener in these parts, I'm not very good, but I'll do it.
Way to sell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. He showed us this video. He was an African-American gentleman, and he broke right into a conversation. Like, we did the introduction stuff, and then he went off and did his thing, and I'm talking to Rudick about whatever, and then this guy just butts in out of nowhere. He's like, I want to show you guys this new character I've been working on, which is super N-word. He can say it, I cannot. And he's like, it's a character I've been doing at shows, and he showed us this video. It's him in costume. And I guess he had been doing it at an open mic. And
was there a big N on his chest?
There might as well. I think there might have been, maybe on his hat. But so there was a traffic accident, and this video is him walking into this active police investigation saying, the super N-word is here to help you. And the cops were like, what is going on here? And he showed us this video, and he's like, so what do you guys think? And we're like, I don't know. And Andrew Rudick's like, you should put that on TikTok, just trying to get him to go away. And so he went away. And then like 10 minutes later, comes back. He's like, I'm banned from TikTok. He put on the super N-word. Like, he meant like cut it up and do something with it maybe. Instead, he just put the whole thing out there and just immediately got kicked off the platform.
That fucking rules so hard. I've heard other comics talk about this. I don't know if you have this moment, but don't name them, but who's the biggest piece of shit big name comic? A story that you have of how they've treated like a staff member of a comedy club or something like that. Like the famous one is Eddie Griffin, the one that's the biggest piece of shit to all the comedy club staffs everywhere. That's not like a secret. That's not one that any comic's ever been scared to say. But have you either had that experience or heard that from a club staff before? Like, this guy fucking sucks, or like heard a story of something along those lines?
I mean, sometimes you'll hear that stuff and it's like, you know, it goes far beyond. Sometimes it's like, oh, this guy was so crazy on pills and stuff that we couldn't even get him out of his hotel room or stuff like that. But
that's not that bad. I mean,
which
like,
is not terrible. I mean, some of it's like
whatever, they're
potentially criminal, or it's like, yeah, he, you know, fondled a waitress here and you know, tried to finger this person. It's like, okay, well, that's a little bit more than just bad dude at the club thing.
Yeah.
But no,
That's assault, brother.
I didn't know if you would have one or not, but I've heard of
I
it.
don't have one of anybody that I've seen being like a total asshole. Like, I mean, I've worked with some people that were, you know, kind of enjoying their new status as like a more famous person that would kind of like, you know, if you're hanging out in the green room with the manager of the club and then just talking to the other comics and then turning to the manager and be like, hey, can we get a pizza in here? And it's like, well, they don't really serve pizza. So he like sent this lady down the street to get a pizza, and that was not like the super cool move. But that's also not like a huge dick move either.
But she went, didn't she?
I'll be honest, I had some of the pizza. It was not bad pizza.
So what about that story where you told me about Mike Birbiglia fucking that dog to death?
Wait, if you want to hear that story, we're right at the end of our free show, so you'll tune into the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/thebastardsermon. $5 a month unlocks all of our bonus episodes, including this one. There's one a week, including the free shows that come a day early, so you'll get them on Saturday instead of Sunday, as well as our Bastard LLC podcast, which is our movie companion podcast. I just put one up for free on YouTube with Blake Hammond. We watched that piece of shit, goddamn garbage-ass Republican Daily Wire fucking Terror on the Prairie, Gina Carano, Donna Cerrone shit show. And we tore it to pieces.
How was it?
Man, so bad.
It was so bad. It was a
horrifically
great time
bad.
watching it with Blake. And Lloyd had to spend $15 on this. So if we could get 3 more Patreon subs, tell your friends. Come on, let's reimburse Lloyd for the fucking money that he spent on this thing. I appreciate everybody that has been donating. So actually, that money has went to cover that already. But if we could just get 3 more people, that would be fucking
we need
sick.
to pay him back. Actually, we're doing quite well. We don't need your money, but
we want your money. We
here's
don't
the
need
pitch.
your money.
We don't need your stupid money. Go watch the movie on your own, you idiots. Start your own podcast, then you can afford movies like that.
Hey, don't even watch it. We put it up for free on YouTube. Fuck the Daily Wire. You can watch our retelling of it. We do a full hour. It's not a 7-minute movie review. It's a full hour. We go in depth to it. We got one of the best comedians in Cincinnati on it with us, Blake Hammond. He fucking crushes everywhere that he goes, and he crushed on that podcast too. Make sure you check that out. All kinds of content like that's also up on the Patreon, but little taste here and there on the YouTube for free. Mark Chalifoux, if you want to go and check him out, rewind back to the beginning. What were those live dates again, Mark?
July 14th through 16th at the Laughing Gas Comedy Club, and then August 4th through 6th at Comedy Key West.
Beautiful. Check him out on social media, Instagram, I'm assuming, Facebook, at Mark Chalifoux, MarkChalifaux. Mark Chalifoux. Go and check him out. He's fucking awesome. Luke, do the read.
We are sponsored by Scarlet Vape and Smoke Shop. Scarlet Vape and Smoke Shop has everything you need. I was discussing with a listener who had questions about what exactly Delta 8, 9, and 10 is. It is a marijuana that has not been caught up by the man yet. They don't have a law against it, so you can still get it now at smoke shops. And Delta 8 is the most potent.
Because you can carry an AR-15 in a McDonald's today, but smoke weed that's just normal weed? No thanks. No, not in Ohio. Not possible for another 15 years. Keep going.
But if you would like to get your hands on Delta 8, 9, or 10, it's a great way to help you get to sleep, which is exactly what the listener was looking for, was a great way to fall to sleep and bring his anxiety down. They also have great pieces, ways for you to smoke the Delta 8, 9, and 10. They've got water pipes. They got bowls. They've got cones, wraps, papers. They have everything you need. And you can find Scarlet Vape and Smoke Shop at one of 2 locations. One is at 937 Monmouth Street, Newport, Kentucky 41071. And the other one is at 11424 Montgomery Road, Cincinnati, Ohio 45249. If you go ahead and let them know you're a bastard at the checkout, they will give you 15% off your order.
I forgot to say this when we were plugging Mark's thing, but the first time I saw him at Blake's show, he fucking blew me away.
Yes.
Blew it out of the water. Mark is a fucking killer comic. If you get an opportunity to go and see him, I've only seen him a handful of times, but every time he's done nothing but absolutely bring the heat and the energy. I love seeing him just a couple of times. Every comic that I hear, Cincinnati's a very nice scene full of nice people, and that's the sense that I get, but even those nice people talk shit, and I've heard a little inside baseball talking shit. The only things that I've heard about Mark Chalifoux are nice things. He's a fucking solid comic. He's a respected comic. Go and see him. Sucking your dick just a little bit, just a little taste.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're fucking sick, dude. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Yeah, of course.
More on the Patreon if you want to hear the Mike Birbiglia's dog getting fucked story. That's real, and we're telling that story. It's 100% real. Give us money so you can hear that story that's real. Anyways, this episode's also sponsored by Bobby Bronson from The Decorated Body. If you want to go and check him out, he runs a tattoo shop along with a couple of other very talented tattoo artists, some of which are friends of ours, but they're all super fucking talented people, and they all do amazing art. It's in the historic Pendleton district of OTR. It's called The Decorated Body. If you want to check out Bobby's art, go to @BG Bronson on Instagram or @The Decorated Body. There's other artists up there, but I still don't think that he's ran it by them if he wants us to mention them or not, but I mean, through The Decorated Body, you can find all their accounts. You can check out all their stuff. Bobby does really sick fucking anime tattoos, and like, if that's your thing, get in there, because his books only open, I think, twice a year. He does a couple raffles every once in a while where you could throw $10 in and randomly on Instagram Live get selected to be one of his tattoo openings randomly. So fucking get in there if you want a tattoo. I mean, it's a prestigious shop, a prestigious artist. You want to fucking go and get something anime related. This is your guy. This is your local guy. This is the way that you support your local fucking artists and whatnot. Bobby Bronson, Decorated Body.
We're also brought to you by banginsnacks.net. They bring awesome snacks from all around the world for very good prices. Check out banginsnacks.net. They have stuff you can't find here, and again, very competitive prices. Great people, great stuff. Banginsnacks.net. If you put in the promo code bastard or bastards, you'll save 15% off.
What kind of food could we get from there?
They have a lot of different snack
What
chips.
are your favorites?
I love the baked squid, the baked pork. I really like the Skittles that we got.
They got soda drinks that are like fucking Japanese white grape soda drinks, and fucking a sour apple from Japan. It's like the type of chips you would get from the Japanese 7-Eleven and shit like that, which sounds like, oh, this is a goofy little gimmick I could get from Jungle Gyms. I went to Jungle Gyms and tried to buy these same snacks, and they're sometimes 1.5, 2 times the price. I mean, you're getting a good deal, plus you're getting our discount code, which is
and that's
what again?
if Jungle Gyms even has them.
That's right, yeah. What's our discount code again?
Bastard or bastards.
And what is that, like 2% off?
Save
3%?
15%.
15, holy fucking shit. How can
It's
they
the
even afford to be in
biggest
business?
discount on the website.
God damn. This episode is also brought to you by former host of the Bastard Sermon, Patrick Seda. He runs Dark Mountain Cult. He'll also be on the podcast next week with Mark Borison from the Jungle Gems podcast. So make sure you fucking stay tuned for that. It's going to be a banger of an episode. But Patrick does Dark Mountain Cult, which is on Etsy. It's on his Instagram. It's on fucking Reddit. It's everywhere. He's doing these really awesome pop culture graphic designs that he's putting on everything. He's making little coins now where he's getting like his designs minted on coins that you can buy. He's doing mood mats, which are just like fucking koozies for your bong. There's fucking wraps for your PlayStations and your Xboxes. I mean, he's doing everything. You want to print, hit him up. I mean, he's taking a little break from social media, but you can get a hold of him at the Instagram page or on his personal Facebook. Patrick Seda, we fucking love you, buddy. And do his podcast.
Also check out Fuck You, We Like The Bengals. Fuck You, We Like The Bengals is hosted by Lloyd Johnson and our good old buddy Alex Schubert. Big-handed Shubes.
Big Shubes.
It is off-season right now, but they're gearing up to record some stuff here soon. They're incredibly handsome. They're very cute. They're funny. They come up with great roasts to shit on the teams that the Bengals are going to be facing up against the following week. They'll be you guys. Was there a draft recently? Did you guys cover that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple months ago, but
a couple months ago. Yeah, dude.
How about that Super Bowl?
Dude
Did you
stuff.
guys talk about the Super Bowl?
And yeah, check out and give a follow to Fuck You, We Like The Bengals.
I've been inundated with commissions recently from a bunch of very generous fans and friends and whatnot, but I'm doing art commissions for money. If you want to hit me up for something, I can make you anything. Follow my Instagram at Cody Hucker. Just hit me up. You know where to find me. Thanks, guys. Is that everything? Anything we need to plug? Anything we forgot?
That's it.
Patreon. Thank you so much, Mark. Another hour on the Patreon. Goodbye.